How you doing, everybody? This is Alan Stout coming to you from the Sunday Night Music on the Menu radio show. I'm doing what I call my podcast from home. This is the third one that I've done, I guess, over the past month or so. Most of the podcasts that I've been doing, 12 of them so far, have been interviews with folks from the local music scene, and I'll come back to that in a minute because I want to talk about it. But these podcasts from home are just me kind of touching base, giving you the vibe of what's going on with the radio show, and some music that I've been listening to, some stuff I've been watching. I always love to talk to people about music on the show, and since we haven't been on in, I think it's a month now. I think we did the last one around March 30th. So I've done a couple of these, not that many, and I try to keep them short, 10 minutes or so. It's been a great weekend. I mean, I think we can maybe feel a little bit of the light at the end of the tunnel coming. Some things, we've got a little bit of a plan in place for when we might be able to resume somewhat of a normal life, whatever the new normal may be. I know that up here in northeastern Pennsylvania, in Luzerne and Lackawanna County, we're going to be at the far end of it because we have the most cases here. And so that's just the plan that the governor has put forth, and I agree with that plan. Obviously, where the hot spots are, where you've got to be the most cautious. So I respect his guidance on that, and the Pennsylvania Department of Health, I think they're doing a great job. It's frustrating, I know, because you see maybe other areas opening up and you're anxious to get out and do it yourself and get back to normal, and the weather doesn't help. I think it was a little bit easier to stay hunkered down maybe back in March when it was still kind of gray, and we even had some cold, snowy kind of days, so you didn't feel like you were missing much out there. But man, I mean, it was so good yesterday to get out a little bit. I took my kids up to the old Rocky Glen amusement park grounds. I don't know if you're supposed to walk around up there. I mean, there are people that do it. It's not really barricaded off or anything. You can't drive through there, but there's nothing stopping you from pulling off to the side of the road and walking down in there. And so we did it. I had done it about 10 years ago, I guess. I was interviewed for a documentary about Rocky Glen. I hadn't been there since. At the time, there was still some remnants of the park, not many. Now there's really nothing. Collectors have picked it clean. Any old go-kart or bumper car or anything from that park is probably in somebody's garage now as a collectible, but you can still see the foundations of some of the buildings, and I could remember where the roller coaster was and the bumper cars and the big sliding board and the music hall, which was not the best facility in the world by any means. It certainly isn't the FM Kirby Center or the Mohegan Sun Arena or Penn's Peak, but in the 80s we didn't have any of those things here, and so it was big enough to hold events. And so saw Bon Jovi up there, and Night Ranger, and Quiet Riot, and Rat, and a lot of the up and coming hard rock bands at the time. I know Eddie Money was there, Jerry Garcia was there. That whole show is up on YouTube. If you're a Grateful Dead fan, you can listen to the whole Jerry show from Rocky Glen. I think it was 1984. So it was kind of fun to walk around the amusement park a little bit, the old amusement park, and look at some of, to have some of those old memories come back to you. I was talking about it a little bit on my Facebook page, and people were talking about shows that they had been to and ticket stubs and things like that. So it was just great to get out yesterday, and went for a little bike ride with my kids later in the evening. And I think that as that happens to us, we're going to feel that tug a little bit more, because it's so, we live in such a beautiful area here in northeastern Pennsylvania. I'm sitting on my deck right now, and I could see 10 miles in almost every direction. I live up on the hillside of the west side, and west side of Wyoming Valley, and it's pretty up here. That's why I live up here. And, I miss getting down there and doing everything that we all do. But, we just got to hang in there and see what happens. I'm going back to my office tomorrow. It'll be the first time I've been there since I'm probably going to put in, a couple of hours in the office, I think. I was told I could come back and probably since around March 18th, I think was the last time I did that. So it'll be nice to see some people. Of course, we'll socially distance at work and, do what we got to do. I'm still been told I could work from home as well, but I guess it's okay to get in there once in a while. And I kind of work solo in my office all day anyway when I'm doing a lot of the marketing and PR. I work for Catholic Social Services in the Diocese of Scranton. It's my full-time job. So, that's, I guess, one step towards getting back, and, I'll take it. The radio show, the way I'm thinking, folks, is I don't know what's going to happen with Mohegan Sun. Obviously, there's some really smart people up there that are working very hard to get back open and in compliance with whatever they're going to have to do. I don't feel bad for myself not being able to have done the show for a couple of weeks. I've been doing it for 16 years, and we'll get back on soon enough. I feel badly more for the folks that I know, and I have some friends that work there full-time. That's their full-time job. And so I'm hoping that they could get back up in business soon for those people. For me, I think for the radio show to get on sooner, my best option might be when we can open up our Scranton studio a little bit more. That might be the best option. And I was talking to my producer about that this week. As things start to lighten up a little bit everywhere else, maybe we could get back on the air in a couple of weeks. I hope so. I'm starting to get some great new music coming my way, and so I can't wait to play it for you. Talking about the podcasts, I did 12 of them now, and people are saying, well, thanks for doing these, and this is nice way to teach it. I want to thank the people for doing them with me. It's no chore to get on the phone with somebody for a half an hour and talk to them about how they're doing. And yeah, it's an interview, and yeah, I have some questions written down that I want to make sure I don't forget to cover. But really, like most of the interviews that I've done my whole career, it eventually just kind of goes into a conversation, and that's what I hope happens, because that's when you get more. And so to be talking to Brett Alexander about how he came through his surgery, major surgery in end of February, and that was the first interview that he did, talking about how he's doing. And Brett's a friend of mine, and so to talk to him, and I talked to him prior to the interview, just checking in on how he's doing, but to let him come on and do a podcast with us and let everybody know how he's doing and his thoughts on COVID-19. We did his first a couple of weeks ago, so everybody's perspective on these things changes as we move through them. To talk to Bill Kelly from the Boys in Dakota and get his thoughts on the passing of his dear friend and musical partner Jerry Hludzik. To talk to Jimmy Harnan, the president of a record label in Nashville, and a guy that grew up right here in Plymouth, Pennsylvania, Wyoming Valley West graduate. Had success here with music with his band Cinch. To talk to us about how Nashville and the record industry is navigating through this with record releases and tours. To talk to Joe Nardone Jr. about how the record business and the retail side of it is handling all this, and Record Store Day and what they're doing to keep their customers happy. To talk to Dustin Douglas, who's just this great musician, and loved Dustin's stuff for so many years now. And to have him tell a lighthearted story about how he picked up a couple of guitars that may have had a little dust on them and start cranking out some tunes on them because he hadn't played them in a long time because he's had some more time. AJ Jump, a drummer with some great bands, owner of Carl Hall, one of the owners and the general manager of Carl Hall, talking to us about how he had to postpone 40 shows right out of the gate back in the middle of March, and how he's trying to figure all that out, and just talk to us about those things. Richie Kostis, Rock Street Music, got a store where he sells music. He's got a band where he's out there playing. He's got a sound and light company, so it just hit Richie in every direction imaginable. And he talked to us about all that stuff. Ellie Rose, talented young singer-songwriter, only 20 years old, Ellie. I've only known Ellie for about a year. when she put out her first album, and to get her perspective from a 20-year-old, and not only to talk to her about music and songwriting and her thoughts on live streams, which so many of the acts are doing such a great job with, but also how she felt about maybe being stereotyped as someone that was insensitive to this situation because of some of the things that we saw early on down in Florida during spring break. And for Ellie to tell us that bothered her and that she was offended by that and maybe even hurt by that. These are the kind of stories that I've been happy to be sharing with you and give these people a little bit of a voice. Will Beekman, general manager of Mohegan Sun Arena, former executive director of the Kirby Center. Will's been so dedicated to music and all sorts of arts and entertainment here in northeastern Pennsylvania for a long time now, and he had so much on his plate at the arena when all this went down. Not only concerts but other events. They do the Globetrotter stuff and the circuses and the monster trucks and the penguins, of course. And Will's also very involved with the concert events down on the river that started last summer at River Common, and they had to postpone those, and talking to us about all of that. And then Will also told us a poignant story about his reaction to the passing of John Prine, who was one of his favorite artists and who he was able to bring to the Kirby Center while Will was there, and share real personal thoughts on the passing of one of the greatest American songwriters. Brett Alexander also shared with us some thoughts on John Prine. Jimmy Harnan also shared his thoughts on Jerry Ludzik, as did Richie Kosis. So anybody that knew Jerry, try to get their thoughts on him. Patrick Mcglinn, a great young songwriter from Scranton, big fan of Patrick's, been playing him on the show for a couple years now. Every record he's put out, I've loved it. Patrick was kind of in the middle of all that stuff that went down around Parade Day. He had a show booked, and so he had to make a decision of what he wanted to do. And so to get his take on that during the COVID, I wasn't expecting that to come up during the conversation, but it did. Kind of forgot about all that Scranton Parade Day stuff with the bars until the conversation with Patrick went there during the course of our conversation, and so I was able to talk to him about that. Joe Wigleski from SI Studios, Wiggy. Wiggy's a teacher. Wiggy is a guitar teacher. He plays in band. He produces records, engineers records. So he got hit in 3 different directions too. And he took us through all of that, and how he's been able to teach a little bit online, but he did lose the club shows, obviously. No one knows when things will be back. And Mike Miz calling us right from the field of Woodstock. The only reason he was over there at the field was because he got a better phone reception. He's in Bethel, which is where Woodstock occurred, and really had a fun time talking to Mike. We actually wound up just telling some funny stories about how we had both at some point in our life hopped a fence at the Woodstock site and we're reprimanded for it. As grown men, this happened to us. It happened to both of us relatively recently. And so, that was interesting. And also, Mike thinks he may have had COVID-19. He had some pretty serious symptoms just before it sort of became a national topic, 105-degree fever. And I don't know what that would feel like, but to talk to him about that and his new music, which is, in the process of being mixed and mastered. I've heard a couple of the tracks. It's great stuff. To get on the phone with Mike and talk to him about what he was doing and catch up, it was really enjoyable. So all 12 of those folks that I've talked to so far, I want to thank them. They said, this is good for me to talk about it. Well, it's good for me too. It's good for me to get on the phone too and touch base with people that have been very good to us here in northeastern Pennsylvania with their time and their talents. And so, I want to thank them, and I'll continue doing them. Probably 2 or 3 a week. I have a couple on tap for you this week. And once I get back on the radio, then maybe we'll just start bringing people into the studio like I normally would do, where I would interview people on the air and then mix in some tunes of theirs and, get back to how I'd been doing it for the last couple of years. But really, this is kind of old school for me. It feels real comfortable to do phone interviews with people. And the only difference now is that in the old days at the Times Leader, I would have to then sit down and spend 3 more hours turning it into an article, whereas now I just throw it up online. Sometimes it's up within an hour or so after we get off the phone. So we'll have some more of them. I think I'm going to be talking to Eddie Apnell this week, Chris Ludzik, Tom Flannery, and there's a couple other people that I've reached out to I haven't confirmed yet. So thanks again to everybody who has tuned in. I hope you can hear the chirping birds. I hope you're all hanging in there. I think we're getting closer. I don't know if we're going to see big concerts this year or the summer festivals or any of that. I would say probably not. But little by little, we'll get back out there and, we'll be together again. I keep everybody in my thoughts and prayers. I love you all, and I hope you all stay safe. God bless you and your families. And, do what I do. Set aside a couple nights a week for music. It really does lift the spirits.